What is up, my brothers and sisters, my agents of respect? It's your boy TreJuanJohnson back with another episode of the No Disrespect But podcast. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Always feel free to comment. Just please make sure you keep those comments respectful. And if you want to support your favorite podcaster, yours truly, um, hit me up at hash or dollar sign TreJuan Johnson on Cash App. How you can get to me. Appreciate the support. That'll also be in the episode description, so look out for that. Um, if y'all wondering why I'm sounding so melancholy, getting over a little sinus issue, so don't quite have my voice yet. So bear with me. Gonna try to get through this show. Don't plan for it to be really long at all. Just want to try to get into some covers and get warm and try to get better real soon. But um, the playoffs are here. The college football playoffs are here. It's going to start next week, opening with Alabama, Oklahoma. Um, and if you guys remember, a few weeks ago, I kind of talked about the college football playoff, and people started to talk about there being a real possibility that two G5 teams, group of five teams, could make it to the college football playoff, which is something that I never thought would happen in the 12-team playoff. Like, it was like maybe if they move to 16, maybe if they move to 24, you may have two or three. You may have two or three teams get in. Thank you, baby. Um, I thought you might have then two or three teams get in to a 16 to 24 team field, but never in my days did I think that um this would happen. The two G5 teams would get in. And you saw a G5 team in Boise State get a bye last week or bye last year, which is something you never thought would happen. And they changed the rules from no longer do the top four conference champions get a bye to, oh, the top five champions get an automatic bid. And you just kind of thought, oh man, like they're really trying to push the G5 teams out. Like you just kind of felt that, right? And I'm here to tell you that I'm happy to be wrong. I mean, I thought this was SEC Big Ten Invitational all the way. Um, I figured that we were pawns in the big money game of we just want to get as many Big Ten and SEC teams in as possible and maybe sprinkle in an ACC or two here and sprinkle in the Big 12 or two here. But knowing that those two conferences were pretty much running everything and Notre Dame was going to be making sure they have a spot and we'll talk about them in just a second. Um, but they did it. I mean, Duke, a five-loss team, wins the ACC championship over UVA, University of Virginia, and James Madison University. They handle business and win their conference. Tulane handles business, wins their conference, and lo and behold, they're one of the five highest-ranked champions, conference champs. And the funny thing is, of course, when you say the highest five, everybody in their mama knew the thought process was there's going to be the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, in the Big 12 and then a G5, right? That's what you thought. So you thought it was just going to be one G5 school. But the ACC was just hot garbage this year, and they have some crazy tiebreaker rule where a two-loss Miami team didn't make it um, to the conference championship game. University of Virginia, who I guess technically lost two conference games, but only got charged for one versus because North Carolina State game didn't count as a conference game, which was kind of weird. Didn't even know you could do that, right? Maybe the SEC should adopt that, right? Alabama and LSU played. We don't count it as a conference game. Like what? This makes no sense. But they were able to do it, and they were able to get to a conference championship, which was insane to the point where arguably your best team being the Miami Hurricanes didn't even make it in, which was just crazy to me, right? Um, but Duke wins in dramatic fashion. I'm in overtime, if I'm not mistaken, and the floodgates open. And not to mention, Alabama's just gotten killed in the conference championship game. BYU's just gotten killed in the conference championship game, and that's when chaos started. Um, Again, I can admit that I'm wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong about the G5's place in the college football playoff. But a lot of people in the college football space aren't happy. And a little sip. It's hot, but good. Um, they aren't happy. And I adamantly fight back against this unhappiness. I don't quite understand it. Not if we love the game, right? Not if we love the game of football. Not if we love the Davids versus Goliaths. Not if we wholeheartedly buy into what we were sold when we went from BCS to a playoff in the first place, and then furthermore went from a 14 playoff to a 12. We were told expansion would open the door for Cinderella stories in college football, which was something you never thought you'd be able to see outside of a bowl game, like a Boise State versus an Oklahoma in the Tostitos Bowl. That was the only opportunity that we had to see David versus Goliath or Utah versus Alabama in the Sugar Bowl with an upset victory. That's the only time we were getting opportunities like that. But then to say, oh, you might have an opportunity to have that for a national championship, where a school where nobody's picking them over some of these top programs, they have a chance to get in the dance and win. We got what we were told in the grand scheme of things, and how could you be mad? You know why you're mad? Because you knew the whole rules from the beginning was to get the top teams in, and you thought, oh, it's just going to be the 12 best teams in the nation, and the 12 best teams in the nation could never include a group of five team, and they should go do their own thing. Well, I'm here to tell you, no, they're Division I football programs too. They're FBS programs too, and y'all need to start freaking respecting them. Like a lot of these top tier programs that you love so much and you put on this pedestal, they wouldn't survive a day with that budget. It wouldn't survive a day with Tulane's budget. It wouldn't survive a day with James Madison's budget. It wouldn't survive a day with Louisiana Monroe's budget. It wouldn't survive a day with Louisiana Lafayette, right? Appalachian State. Y'all wouldn't survive a day with their budgets in comparison. But I guarantee you, if they got your budget, now we got to really start questioning who's the blue bloods, who's getting the top players, right? So no, we're getting what we need. Five top conference champions, James Madison and what they did with the Sun Belt, and Tulane with what they did in the American. They did what was supposed to happen. But oh, I'm sorry, your precious Notre Dame didn't get in. A team that lost to the two best teams that they played all year and then ran a gambit, whoa, by running the gambit on a mostly G5 schedule, right? And ACC bottom feeders, right? Um, what is their best win? I can tell you that Tulane's best win is against the ACC champ. I can tell you that James Madison was in a dogfight with one of the top half with a team that was in the top half of the ACC in Louisville. Had a 14-6 lead in the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. So those two teams did what they were supposed to do, and I think we should be cheering instead of bitching and moaning that Notre Dame didn't get in or BYU didn't get in or God forbid Bama got in. How could they? Well, look, not to dive into it much more than we have to, but of again, I knew the G5 teams were going to get in once Duke won the conference championship in the ACC, and there were two spots, three teams vying for those two spots: Alabama, Notre Dame, Miami. Alabama, guess what? 10-2 regular season, more ranked wins than Notre Dame and Miami had. Made it to a conference championship game, which Notre Dame nor Miami were able to do. Miami, I will say, I think got robbed by a tiebreaker system that's just stupid, needs to change. But Notre Dame doesn't play in the conference. And yeah, Alabama got killed against UGA, against Georgia in the conference championship. But guess what? They were in a conference championship. We're not penalizing a conference champion who's or a conference championship runner-up who was the one seed going into that. So the one seed in one of the tougher conferences in the nation. They weren't going to get penalized for an extra game in comparison to these other two teams. All right, so Bama's in, right? All right, now we got Notre Dame, Miami. Well, pretty even resumes for the most part, but Miami has a little bit of a edge in strength of record, strength of schedule. And here's the big thing, guys. Head to head. How many times has the committee shown that head to head is a valuable metric for them? If Notre Dame won that game in September, guess what? They're getting in, but they didn't. Miami won that game. So Miami gets to 9. They get to get into the playoffs. They get to go play Texas A&M University. Like that's just what it is. It's simple as that. And we are, like I said, we are getting the opportunity at March Madness that we're told. And look, while I think the powers that be, when they made this system, that they didn't have that in mind at all. I think you have to give the committee a ton of respect for what they did. They said we're going to value conference championship games, when we're going to value the top 5 conference championship winners. This isn't the 12 best teams. See, too many people are trying to apply the metrics and how they viewed the 14 playoff into the 12-team playoff. It wasn't just about getting the best teams in. In the 14 playoff, we needed the best 4. That's how in Alabama and Texas get in over an undefeated Florida State. Because while Florida State was undefeated, them without their starting quarterback, they were not one of the 4 best teams in the nation. So Alabama gets in because they beat the 1 seed UGA, who was on a 29 game win streak, and was the 2-time defending national champion. You're getting in the playoffs, okay? A Texas team that we're going to judge. Hey, you got your starting quarterback. They don't. We think Texas is a better team. Oh, by the way, they have a win versus a team in this playoff who happens to be the SEC champion that just took down a 2-time defending national champions. We got to value that head to head too, right? Which is why Texas was the 3 seed and Alabama got knocked down to the 4 seed. Because although Alabama may have won the tougher conference of the two between the SEC and the Big 12 at that point in time, we had to value head to head. Where Texas not only beat Bama, they went to Tuscaloosa and won that game. So we had to put them at the 3 seed instead of the 4 seed. And of course, Michigan and Washington, they were both undefeated. So no one was going to jump them. And they had their starters. Like if Michael Penix Jr. gets hurt or JJ McCarthy gets hurt, guess what? Those teams probably suffer the same fate as Florida State did. You might see a UGA take one of those spots because their loss to Alabama was their only loss. Their only loss, 29 straight games won. 2-time defending national champion. If J.J. McCarthy doesn't finish the season for Michigan, if Michael Penix Jr. doesn't finish the season for Washington, I think one of those 2 teams are out. So you could have got a lot of teams affected, but again, that 4-team playoff was about getting the 4 best teams into the playoff. The 12-team playoff is not that. It is not getting the best 12. It is getting the highest 5 conference champions first and foremost. They get a spot. They automatically get a spot. And then, right, then we start going, okay, of the remaining 7 spots, who's better? Well, okay, we're going to value folks that were made it to their conference championship. So we're going to give them a spot a la an SMU and how they got in over Alabama last year, not because we thought Alabama or SMU was better than Alabama. It was Alabama's a 3-loss team who sat at home while an SMU who finished the year undefeated had to play an extra game versus a Clemson team that took it to them, but a Clemson team that was hot. You could not penalize that SMU team. Yes, Alabama had every single metric in terms of strength of schedule, strength of record on their side. But the committee set a precedent that we are not going to penalize teams for playing in their championship, especially if they finish the year undefeated. Oh, Trey, BYU got hindered this year. So what are you talking about? Why couldn't Bama get hindered? Well, I'll explain that to you. Alabama, the difference between Alabama and BYU, both ended up in a rematch with a team they played earlier in the season. Alabama has on their resume, right, in comparison, on their resume, a win on the road versus UGA. BYU got dominated twice. Also, last time I checked, their quarterback was barely able to finish the game because he was limping the whole time. So You had to ask yourself, do I think this team is better than Notre Dame right now? No, I don't think so. Do I think this team is better than Miami right now? No, I don't think so. And I'll tell you this. I think in the committee's mind, had the game was what, 13-7 in the fourth quarter. Let's say this game ends 24-7, 28-7. And BYU showing a little bit of life. But the way they just bottomed out in that fourth quarter, you just couldn't. You couldn't trust them. You couldn't put them in over a Notre Dame and Miami. Like you had to choose between one of those two teams. Um, and so I get that. I think that's the difference between Alabama and BYU. While both lost in the conference championship, Alabama a signature win, had a signature win over that opponent earlier in the year, whereas BYU got killed twice. So again, the committee showed that we're going to value conference championship participants. We're going to definitely value conference champion winners, conference championship participants based on what it is, because you have to do the winners because we want the top five champs. Participants, hey, what were they like going into that? What's their record? What's their resume? Right? And ultimately, they maintain something that they've been maintaining since the 14 playoff. Head-to-head matters. And I will say they screwed up initially by having Notre Dame over Alabama and Miami. Then they rectified it by putting Alabama over Notre Dame. But I think at the same time, they should have put Miami over Notre Dame. And so you knew going into that week that it really was going to be a conversation between Alabama, Miami, and BYU at that point, and that Notre Dame was always going to be on the outside looking in. But that didn't happen. You kept Notre Dame in that buffer between Alabama and Miami, and then at the end of the day, you had to then be forced to reckon with Miami versus Notre Dame. Everybody's bringing up Alabama. Alabama was in regardless. The moment they had them jump Notre Dame in the final rankings before the conference championship weekend, they told us it didn't matter what happened. They were going to have that spot. They told us that. So think about it this way. Alabama was going to stay put at 9. Then you had Notre Dame, who was in front of BYU at 11, and then Miami at 12. Well, BYU gets killed by a team in the second go-around, right? That moves Miami up. Now we have to decide, okay, Alabama has a spot. Now we have to decide, is it going to be Miami or Notre Dame? And you could not, in good faith, with both of those teams being home on conference championship weekend, say, I'm going to put Notre Dame in over Miami when Miami had the head-to-head. And so the committee showed us this. And so, look, I've heard a lot about how the system's flawed. No, you're flawed, not the system. I think the system can work if it is done appropriately to give other teams opportunities at a national championship that have earned it. And to sit up here and act like Tulane and James Madison did not bust their ass to have an opportunity. They played the schedule in front of them. They won the games in front of them. They won their conference. Like, let's talk about conference expansion. Hell, Oregon is probably the Pac-12 champ right now. They're taking a spot. Notre Dame, you join the ACC, you're probably in the championship game based on your record versus the ACC this year and the teams you played. You're in the conference championship. So win or lose, we can't hold that against you. You have a spot. So that's on you. Like that's on all you guys. Overloading these conferences with teams where not everybody plays each other. Having a team pretty much just or a football program just do what they want to do and set their own rules in Notre Dame to the point that it did all this bitching and moaning, but we found out next season going forward, if they're in the top 12, they automatically get a playoff bid. And we're complaining about G5 teams who earn the shit. Y'all acting like it's a participation trophy, like, oh, we just a DEI thing. We just got to give them an opportunity. And y'all around here gifting fucking spots to Notre Dame and have the nerve to act like a team that is in a conference, that is winning games, that is still playing some of the top conferences in the league. Again, Tulane has a win over the conference champion, over a Power 4 conference champion. Okay, let's talk about that. You want to try to hurt them. You want to try to hurt their product, hurt their program. You know what that money, you don't understand that how transformational that money will be to their program, not just the football programs, their whole athletic program, and the Sun Belt teams and the Sun Belt programs and the American Conference programs who also get to eat off of that. And you want a team that's not in the conference and a team that wasn't in the conference championship just be gifted spots. And Notre Dame, or you got to be top 12. Oh, play two really good opponents. You can lose both, but just win the rest of your games. We'll get you in the top 12. You're in every year. What? That is insane. And if I'm a team in a powerful conference, I'm not playing them. So I want to see you now with a true G5 schedule because we don't have any Power Four opponents. I want to see then if your brand is your brand, as you say. Like we gonna miss y'all. South Carolina getting more views than y'all, and y'all think y'all something. But look, like I said, the system isn't flawed. Like, no, we don't need to add more teams because what's going to happen? Add 16, put it to the 16. Okay. Then 17, 18, 19, and 20 are going to be bitching that they got passed. Push it to 24. Okay. 25, 26, 27 are going to be bitching that they didn't get it. Like, everybody wants this FCS model too. Dude, I just saw a 5-loss team get in. A 5-loss team. Like, what are we talking about? Got an at-large bid, a 5-loss team. And guess what? They done smoked. They smoked the two teams in front of them. Because they're a really good program, but they had a bad year, 7-5. And they just smoked. They smoked Tennessee Tech. North Dakota did. They were 7-5. We just saw a 4-loss team in Illinois State. We just saw them beat a 3-loss team in Southeast on the road, and then go beat the #1 overall seed, defending national champion North Dakota Bison. But if we had that at the FBS level, you'd be bitching that a 4-loss team got in. So no, you won't be satisfied. And here's the thing: even at the FCS level, there were teams that folks felt got snubbed. That's always going to be the part of the conversation. You have to have some level of controversy. Like 68 teams made it to March Madness. Guess what? We still are trying to figure out the teams on the bubble and why they got left out. That's still a conversation. So to act like, oh, there's not going to be a conversation and we're going to be okay with these teams, you're bullshitting. Like, stop it. The system isn't flawed. You are. You know how I know? Because I'm a person who felt like the system was designed to push G5s out and to maybe only have one team get an opportunity and to try to fit in as much SEC and Big Ten teams as possible. And to some degree, I'm not wrong in that regard. But damn it, I can give credit when, despite what the system was designed to be, in terms of the mental fortitude, from the physical standpoint, the letter of the law, the committee got it right. And that's something to be excited about. They got it right. They two teams that bust their asses all year in a conference, won it, did everything they were supposed to do. They made sure that they were one of the highest 5 ranked conference champions. Guess what? University of Virginia does their job and beat Duke. Guess what? James Madison isn't in. Because James Madison was behind Duke. James Madison was behind Virginia and Tulane. Tulane and let's say Tulane and James Madison lost. So let's say North Texas and Troy won. Well, Troy's not getting in because they weren't ranked. UNT may make it in because they were ranked 25, if I'm not mistaken. But they don't make it. But hey, they don't make it in. I don't think they make it in, if I did my numbers right, if Troy and UNT win, but Virginia wins. I think if I did my numbers right, I might be wrong. But no, I did it wrong because you were going to have one in. At the very least, you're going to have one in. But again, they earned it. They made sure they got themselves in the rankings. Like, what more do you want? You should be applauding those programs. But no, you always knew it was bullshit, but they were trying to feed us. But shit, when it turns back on them and they have to, and they're forced to follow the legit system by the letter of the law, you should applaud that, not try to find more ways to push the little man out. Like, that's insane. You're flawed, not the system. You, me, but not the system. It's designed the way it's supposed to be if it is done right. And the committee, in my opinion, got it done right. Did they have some questionable things? Like, look, like I said, Alabama and Miami should have been ranked over Notre Dame to begin with, but they got it right in the end. I think UGA should be ranked over Ohio State. But here's the thing: Ohio State went into championship weekend undefeated. They lost by 3 points. They had 4th and 1 at the 5 yard line. They shanked a 20-yard field goal. So you know what the committee said? I know they lost, but I can't hold that extra game against them because for 12 weeks, they were the best team in the nation. So I know UGA, after the Bama loss, they went on the run. They dominate in the SEC championship game. But I gotta respect what Ohio State has put on film for 12 weeks, and the fact that they 2 plays pretty much lost the game for them. But they were in the red zone, 5, 10 yards away from a touchdown, right? They gamble on one, they miss it. Then they try to play it safe, kick the field goal, they shank it. So I can still respect the committee's commitment to their process of, we're not going to let these extra games hurt you. So while yes, UGA did their thing on a 12-week sample size, Ohio State still did more. And we're not going to drop them 2 spots. We'll drop them a spot because Indiana got the head-to-head against them. So we can't jump UGA over them. So they stuck true to it. While I disagree with it, while I think UGA won the toughest conference in football and had a harder schedule, and therefore should have been rewarded with the 2 seed, it is what it is. I understand from the committee's perspective because they were consistent in how they navigated this thing. Conference champions, conference championship runner-ups not being punished, head-to-head mattering. That's what it is. So you're flawed, not the system. Say that again. You're flawed, not the system. Anyways, let's go. Let's talk a little bit about the matchups and what we got. So Indiana won the Big Ten championship, undefeated season, #1 seed. The Ohio State University, the 2 seed. UGA dominated Bama, 3 seed as the SEC champion. Texas Tech University, the 4 seed as the Big 12 champ. Then we got our first round matchups, right? So remember, these are played on college campuses. And God, when we're talking about what changes need to be made before y'all start all that expansion shit, please make sure that the change coming into effect next season is that quarterfinal matchups are played on college campuses. The fan bases, the administrations, those communities, they've earned the right, especially for teams that have a top 4 seed and a bye. They've earned the right to have their first showing, their first playoff showing in front of their fan base. Give some of these bowl games back, and maybe that could help teams like a Notre Dame not want to opt out, right? So let's just make sure that's a change that happens in a 12-team system before we talk about expanding. But anyways, you're gonna have the 5th seed Oregon versus Ole Miss. Versus James Madison. You're gonna have the 6th seed Ole Miss versus Tulane. You're gonna have the 7th seed Texas A&M versus the 10th seed Miami, and then the 8th seed OU Oklahoma versus 9th seed Bama. Um, Indiana will play the winner of the OU Bama game. Ohio State will play the winner of the A&M Miami game. UGA will play the winner of Ole Miss Tulane, and Tech will play the winner of Oregon JMU. Kind of want to park there because I think the Big Ten got screwed again 2nd year in a row, especially as the 1 seed. Like, you telling me my reward is I got to play a neutral site game versus OU or Bama as an Indiana team? That's screwed. And you're telling me Ohio State as my award, I have to play a neutral site game against Texas A&M, who's was arguably the best team in the nation. until their one loss against Texas. By the way, one loss. Let's remember that they only lost one game versus Miami, who only lost two games. That's my reward. Wow, UGA gets the winner of Ole Miss, who doesn't have a Lane Kiffin anymore. We're still trying to figure out their whole process in a Tulane, who's a G5 team that I think is really good. That can still they can put up a fight with anyone, but still, when you just think of it on paper, right? Doesn't stack up as much as you think. And in Tech, the winner of Oregon, James Madison, kind of same thing. Um, I just think the Big Ten got screwed again. Like it's insane. But I would feel much better with these top four seeds if they got to host that first game on their campuses, which I think they have earned the freaking right to do. Not just rest, but to have my first showing be in front of my crowd. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on the matter. So as I do my predictions, I have um here's the thing. If I picked with my heart right, I would want James Madison and Tulane both to win their matchups just simply because I'm just tired of the bullshit that all of these people on these airwaves are spewing about these two programs, who, by the way, are losing their coaches, and those guys are still battling. Their coaches are battling with their teams, um, because it's about them. And it's about the kids, really. They're not about self, unlike some coaches, right? Um, I almost want to pick both. I won't do that, but I'll tell you right now, I am picking one of them to get an upset. And I kind of feel bad for this one because it's going to hurt another program, and people are going to start making jokes and all that type of stuff. But it is what it is. But anyways, James Madison versus Oregon. I'm going Oregon in that one. I just think it's too much. I actually think James Madison will kind of make it a game, just the way they're able to run the ball, very physical on defense. You have some size in their DBs to kind of contest with those Oregon receivers. But man, playing up there, cross country trip, by the way, coming from Virginia all the way to Oregon, man, I just think Oregon Stadium is going to be a little bit too much. And so I have in the quarterfinal Tech versus Oregon. Um, in the 6 versus 11 game, I actually got Tulane upsetting Ole Miss. You guys know I'm born and raised in New Orleans, and Tulane was the G5 champ that I picked going into this year, and I didn't pick them to just make an appearance. I had it in my mind going into the year that not only were they going to make it, they were going to win a game. I'm a huge truther in Jake Retzlaff. And I'm looking forward to him putting some teams on notice and putting the nation on notice. He's going to have another year in college, so I think he's going to be one of those names in the 27 class that we're talking about, and I think it starts there. So I'm gonna go Tulane to upset Ole Miss in a close one, and they're going to face UGA. Um, this 7-10 matchup, I've kind of been going back and forth. I think on Twitter, I picked A&M at home. Mike Elko is going to have those boys ready. Defense is phenomenal. But I think Miami is also explosive. I think they have the best edge rusher. I mean, this is the Cassius Howell versus Ruben Bain game, right? And it's about, okay, who do you trust more? Which quarterback is going to make the least amount of mistakes? Because we got two quarterbacks that are very prone to mistakes. Um, and so while on the timeline I picked A&M, I thought long and hard about this, and I'm gonna go Miami in the upset. I think Miami's gonna win. Sorry, Dan. I had to go with Miami on this one. I think Miami's gonna face the Ohio State University in the quarterfinal, and then OU Bama. Um, I got Bama in this one. So in the first round, I got three of the four road teams winning. Of course, wishful thinking with Tulane. Shit, you might say I'm wishful thinking with Bama being biased and a Bama fan because guess what? Oklahoma has owned us 2 games in a row. Especially last year in Norman, Oklahoma, put it on us 24-3. Just was not close. I think Alabama did dominate that game in this most recent game this season and just left some meat on the bone and couldn't execute when they needed the execution. Um, but I think Bama, I think they're coming with something on their chest. Like you can't have that type of performance in the SEC championship game, then have 2 weeks to prepare for a Brent Venables defense, which I think the last couple of years we got the shit into the stick because he had 2 weeks to prepare for us, where we had to come go off of a ranked team playing him, playing that defense. I think now we're at least have an even advantage with both of us having 2 weeks to prepare for each other. Obviously, we've already played each other earlier in the year. I think Alabama wins this game, and I'm I'm going to limit say they win it quite handily. And it might not show like that on the scoreboard. It might end up being like a 10 or 13 point win, but I think they will have dominated that game for 60 minutes. So I'm gonna go Bama on that one. And so they'll be facing the one seed Indiana Hoosiers in the quarterfinal. So my quarterfinal matchups are Indiana versus Bama, Ohio State versus Miami, UGA versus Tulane, and Texas Tech versus Oregon. I'm going to take Bama over Indiana. Excuse me. I will take Ohio State. Yeah, I'll take. Man, I'm gonna take Miami in this one. Like it's just something, just the way that they can score offensively and that defensive line. Like this time of year is where defensive lines eat. And I think you can get to a Julian saying. And I'm also when I'm thinking about Carson Beck and a guy who's been in these positions, right? Who is that veteran guy that's been to many college football playoffs, right? Like I gotta go with them. I gotta go with that experience. And I'm gonna go um and I'm gonna go UGA over Tulane, and I'm gonna go Texas Tech over Oregon. I kind of going back and forth. I think Oregon, probably talent perspective, might have the more talented team, but I just love how well coached Tech is. They have a defense that forces turnovers. They're going to be going against a very young quarterback in Dante Moore. Dan Lanning really just isn't a big game guy, and until he shows me, I just can't put my trust in him. So I'm gonna go Tech on that one. And so that would set up a semifinal of Bama versus Texas Tech and the Ohio State versus UGA. And look, I got Bama over Tech. I think that's going to be a really down to the wire game. And I think that's going to be the game where just this roller coaster of a season as an Alabama fan where you just felt like you should have been blowing people out and why our game's close and we're just having to just club out victories. I think it's going to manifest itself for the better in this game. I think it's going to be a really hard game. I think Texas Tech is going to put people on notice that hey, we're just not a one-hit wonder. We are building something here, and this will be our last time here. Um, I'll even go as far as to say I can see this game going to overtime and Alabama winning in overtime. So I'm gonna go Bama in that one, and I'm actually gonna go UGA in a blowout over Ohio State. I just don't think Ohio State's all that good, and I know it sounds stupid because I have them in the semifinal of the college football playoff. Um, But I just think UGA and what they can do offensively, having a dual threat quarterback in Gunnar Stockton, while they might not have the playmakers on the outside really to test Ohio State, I just think that defense, man, they're going to make life miserable for Julian Saying. And so I'm gonna go UGA, and so we got a trilogy, and this is going to spark an playoff expansion. I know it will, but I think we'll have an SEC champion, national championship, a trilogy. I think this will be the first time two teams have played each other 3 times in the same season. Um, and I'm gonna go Bama, and Bama's gonna get their lick back. I don't think it's gonna be the shellacking that UGA put on us, but I think we're gonna get a really good win, and Bama's gonna be a national champion. There's no surprise to anybody with that one. They were my national championship pick going in. They made it to the playoffs. So shit, we in. Why not win the whole damn thing? So Bama over UGA in the trilogy, the three-peat, or the I guess the trilogy, and Bama wins it 2-1. Um, that's what I got. So, look, looking forward to the playoffs. Looking forward to the bowl games, and for teams that actually want to play bowl games, right? Looking forward to that. But last, just want to say it again, guys. The system's not flawed. You are. And when I say you are, I'm not just talking about you. I'm talking about me too. We're flawed as a society that name brands and big time programs, they're the only ones that belong. It's a very elitist mindset. And we got to let that shit go because the system is trying to figure out a pathway where teams like Tulane and James Madison and some of these other programs, they have a chance to be great. They have been winning some of these games on the New Year's Six Bowls. If you actually watch college football and with the NIL and the transfer portal, they're building some things too. Give it some time, you'll see one of these programs in a national championship sooner rather than later. And that's why I end the show. You guys know what I do. If there's anything I said that offended anyone, look, it's a good thing. It's an opportunity for me to learn. It's an opportunity for you to teach me. All I ask is that you keep it respectful. Peace.